Erev Tov, everybody. Happy Wednesday evening. Of course, as we've had our share of storms and perhaps in other places more violent weather. But I hope everybody is well and we're ready to begin learning. This week is Parshat Mattot-Masai. It's a double Parsha. And it is, in addition to being a double Parsha, this Shabbos, it also is, Shabbat Mevarchim. And we are going to usher in the Chodesh Av, Menachem Av. Be'ezrat Hashem, it will be a Nechama for us. And also then ultimately a point of joy. There are weddings that come and various other elements that are planned afterwards. And may Hashem grant Simcha to come if indeed we have to complete the 9 days, in our normal way. So hopefully we will have much simcha after that. And then so it is also it's Shabbos Mevorchim, and it is of course ushering in the 9 days. We're not going to talk about the 9 days now, but what I'd like to draw your attention to some psukim. It's a story which is probably pretty well known, but I would not place it as among the most heavily or intensively studied stories that we have. The final chapters of Parshat B'Midbar. It would be chapter 32, Lamed Bet, Pasuk Aleph. And I'm going to see if I can share screen here and hope that I did it right. I believe it should work. Is everybody see that we put this on the screen? I hope you can acknowledge that also, please.
Yes, I see it.
Good. All right. If one has seen it, then everybody has. All right. The Jews are about to enter Eretz Yisrael, and this. You can imagine the anticipation that they have had. They have defeated the kingdoms of Og and of Sichon, those who were on the east end of the Jordan River, which the Torah calls Ever HaYarden Mizracha, the eastern end of the shall we say the areas that are close to the Yarden. So there is, the Ever Yarden Mizracha, the east side of the other side of the Jordan, and there is Ever Yarden Marava, the west side. Well, our story begins where the Jews are about ready to enter, having defeated Sichon and Og, and the Torah now tells us in one pasuk a very important concept that we're going to learn tonight, and it begins as follows: Umiknei Rav haya livnei Reuven. The children or the members of the tribe of Reuven had mikneh, cattle, a lot of cattle, herds. They had brought with them livnei haya livnei Reuven v'livnei Gad atzum ma'od. They had really a great deal of them. And of course, if anybody's been to the north part of Eretz Yisrael for any period of time, it doesn't have to be long, it can be short, for any period of time, so they will see that really is in fact cattle country. There are a lot of horses there that have been imported, cattle is grown there, and cattle are raised there, they aren't grown. Vayiru et Eretz Yazer ve'et Eretz Gilad. They saw the members of Gad and Reuven, those two tribes, saw this really idyllic place for them and their herds. V'hinei makom mikom mikneh. The place is a place that is suitable, very suitable for cattle. Now, what we see here is that the Torah here uses a very important tactic, and that is what we call Milah mancha, a lead word. The word itself is designed to ring in our ears so that we understand very clearly what the topic will be. And that word begins in bookends and ends with bookends in this pasuk, umiknei rav, and large herds of cattle. And then it says that when the Bnei Gad and Ruvain complete their introductory sentence, they say, Hinei hamakom makom mikneh. They notice they don't make a proposal at this point. They just want to say how suitable this land is for them, because they probably could anticipate that Moshe Rabbeinu would not look upon their proposal, which would be coming fairly soon, with favor. Okay, because obviously they had just had to defeat Sichon and Og. They knew that there will probably be other battles that would ensue, and that if they were left on the other side, it would have a detrimental effect upon the Jews. Not only the actual military ability to conquer, but it will have an effect on the persona and the way people looked at themselves, on the way people look at the coming struggles that had to be. It would have a detrimental effect on them, even though not necessarily a military effect. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, you know this, you know exactly what happened when we sent the Meraglim, the spies, several Parshiot back into Egypt. The fact that some of the spies thought that the land was not conquerable, that literally discouraged the Jews, literally set them into despondency. And so they knew something was about to play. So they wanted to say, they didn't want to start with the proposal. They started with saying, this is ideal for us. And then Vayavo b'nei Gad u'bnei Ruvain vayomru al Moshe ve'al Elazar haKohen ve'al Nasiei ha'odah. There we can see they are now going to introduce but not mention the plan. Atarot v'divon v'yazer v'nimra. These are various places that the Cheshvon ve'alalei u'savam u'nevo v'on. All of these places are really places that we think we would like to be to inhabit. And then they say again, Ha'aretz asher hika Hashem lifnei adat Yisrael, the land which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has conquered for us. Okay, Eretz Miknehi. Again, the word Mikneh. It is a land of cattle, prosperity, the la'ava, and it just so happens the la'avadecha Mikneh, and your servants, meaning to say the people who are about to make a proposal, there is Mikneh. Now we're going to see the proposal that they have. Okay, their proposal is short because they've already introduced it. It didn't take much for Moshe Rabbeinu to see what they were going to ask, and so therefore he had a response for them. Their request was short, right? And here's Moshe's response. Vayomer Moshe livnei Gad v'livnei Ruvain, ha'achechem yavo lamilchama, shall your brethren, shall they go to war? Va'atem teishuvu po, and you're going to stay here with the cattle? Is that what's going to happen? V'lama tini'un et leiv b'nei Yisrael. Why shall, now the word lahani is to invalidate. In this case, why should you, the translation here is, you shall turn the minds of the Jews from crossing. Your proposal, as innocent as it sounds, a simple business proposal, that's what it appears to be. We have it's a perfect match. Land is perfect for cattle. We've got a lot of cattle. Let's go ahead. So Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, why shall the people will be, Tiniun here, I think probably the best English word would be dissuaded. The people's heart will be dissuaded. And this is going to have a terrible effect on morale. Then Moshe Rabbeinu has a long memory, even though this wasn't a long time. Well, actually, it was a long time. It's 38 years. Moshe Rabbeinu never forgot it. Ko asu avotechem. This, I've heard this before already, about what you want and how you want to alter the entrance of the Jews into the Eretz HaMuftachat, into the Promised Land. Your fathers, the ones who have all pretty much died out, I sent them out. Not that I wanted to, but they went. And what they did was they gave their own views. They went and they examined everything. And they turned the minds, or they dissuaded the Jews. All right. Their words literally turned the Jews off. And Vayicharaf Hashem by Yom Ahu Vayishaval Limor. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was angered by them. Now, it's important to mention here in every place that the anger that we speak about with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not an emotional anger. It is not an emotional anger. God does not have emotions as we have. We portray them as such, but they aren't. It is in this case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu about to take strong action, because strong action is necessary. Very often when I teach this to students, I tell them it's very much that if you're told that if you come late to davening, and the davening supervisor warns you once and twice, and says in the third time, if you come late again, some sort of negative consequence will happen. So, and it happens, it's because wonderful students are still wonderful students, and the person who was on the wrong end of the punishment says, boy, was he angry. Not necessarily. The supervisor isn't angry. His job or her job is the responsibility is to get people there on time. Some stern or strong action may be necessary, but it's not necessarily the result of anger. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said at that time, from 20 years and older, they're not going to see this land, with the exception of Kalev, as it says, and Pasuk Bet and Yehoshua, the two of them. And then, and it says here, Vayicharaf Hashem b'Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu again took strong, stern action, and he made them wander in the desert 40 years. We know what this was. Now you're coming again. You right afterward, not right, because it is 38 years later. What are you doing? Tarbut Anashim Chataim, a group, and Moshe Rabbeinu really berates them. He calls them a group of people who tarbut is generally a culture, but it means to say with an outlook on life. That's what a culture is to a large degree, but an outlook on life. Lispot od al charon af Hashem. You're going to add to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's displeasure now, and then he says, "Ki tishivun me'acharav v'yosaf od la'nichol b'midbar." You're going to continue with them. After all they uttered was one sentence. Okay, they uttered Vayomru im matzanu chen. They uttered one sentence, and that launched this anger. You can imagine 38 years, pent up anger. And now we're going to see. Now they approach in Pasuk Tet Zayin. Now, let's follow this carefully because the words are so important here. And they approached Moshe. See, in other words, there wasn't a shouting match. No, it's not as you're thinking. It's not what you think. First, we're going to set up corrals for our flocks. And we're going to set up areas in towns for our children. We're going in. We're not going to stay here and not go in. Now, the word, by the way, the modern Hebrew word chalutzim, which means pioneers, we will go first. That's nechalitz. We shall go in a rapid approach there, Lifnei Bnei Yisrael, and we will be at the head of the Bnei Yisrael. Until we bring them to their place where they will settle, the other tribes. The Yashav Tapenu Ba'arei HaMivtzar Mipnei Yoshevei Haaretz. And our children are safely taken care of in here on the east bank of the Jordan. We will not return to our houses. Ad hitnachel b'nei Yisrael ish nachaloto. Once the Jews are settled, and it took 7 years to conquer the land, another 7 years to divide the land. We're talking 14 years. I don't know that they thought it would be 14 years, but that's what they thought. We don't plan to have the same share on the west bank as of the Jordan as we take here. Okay, we will take our land on the east bank of the Jordan. Moshe responds, if indeed you do this, as you plan to do it. Sorry. If indeed you precede the other troops to go into Israel. Now this is Ketz condition number 1. Now notice what he is saying here. Okay, before Hashem. Notice in Psukim, each time it says Lifnei Hashem, Lifnei Hashem. That was absent in the original proposal. V'amar lachem kol chalutz et hayarden lifnei Hashem v'avar. Lachem kol chalutz et hayarden lifnei Hashem ad horisho, until you actually et oivav, until you can disperse and chase away his enemies mipanav, from his face, from before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nich b'shah haaretz lifnei Hashem. That word lifnei Hashem, that phrase is uttered over and over again. V'achar tashuvu, then you may return. V'yitem nikiyim le'Hashem, and then you will be considered as blameless before God, umi Yisrael, and the Jews. Very important concept. Some people, all they care about is what does Hashem think, but they don't care about people. And some care only about people, and they don't care about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Moshe Rabbeinu is very clear. He is always, throughout the Chumashim, sets the tone that in order for it to have a successful Jewish enterprise, it has to be the people are Nikiyim, Me Hashem u'Mi Yisrael. They are seen as virtuous. And that's what it means here, Nikiyim, virtuous. Me Hashem u'Mi Yisrael. Then this land can be yours, la'achuzah, for a stronghold, okay, lifnei Hashem. This is a famous Tanai Kofel. Moshe Rabbeinu gives the other side of it, but if you don't do it, all right, then you should know that you have sinned before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, Benu lachem arim letapechem. Build cities for your children, the gidrot betzonachem, and fences or corrals for your sheep, and then you should do it. Now, having said that, we're going to just briefly understand something. Said that, very often it's not unusual that you have two versions of the same story or the same conversation in the Torah. And so here, it doesn't mean that there's two different versions of what happened, but there could be a dialogue that goes on, and the words of the dialogue seem to be pretty much in place. But the words of the dialogue seem to be pretty much in place, and there doesn't seem to be a difference. But when we look carefully, Muhammad says, in instances like this, where we have a repetition of either a story or a repetition of words within a dialogue, that the two parties each say somewhat the same thing, but they will differ in one of four ways, at least one. First of all, there are substitutions of words, meaning to say that a word, that sometimes it can be that a word to jump and leap are essentially the same, but the words may sometimes be used interchangeably with a nuance of a different meaning. That's one way they differ. Second way is by adding things, especially when it's a dialogue, that's in all negotiations, or most negotiations, there usually is some sort of an addition or a deletion. That's the third thing. Additions or deletions, which are essential for understanding the story well. So here, of course, you could have deletions, you could have additions, you can have word substitution, and there could be a change of presentation. So here, let's go back and take a look and see. Hold your applause, please, until after this is done, because we don't want to prematurely. There we go. Okay. I can't hear the applause, but I'm assuming that it is all throughout the area. All right, now let's take a look at what their proposal is. Their proposal is they say in Pasuk Hey, in Matzanu Chen Beinecha, let the land be given to us as a stronghold, and don't make us go with everybody else. Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, his response was, "Oh, that's not going to happen." Okay, you really think that your brothers will do the thing, and you're going to stay over here? But and he says that, by doing this, you will, of course, discourage everybody else. That was done 38 years ago. Still paying the price. We still haven't entered Israel because of what was done 38 years ago by the 12 spies. And Hashem was upset with them then. And so therefore he said, I don't like your proposal. It's certainly not good. Now, then in Pasuk Tezayin, it says, Vayigshu Elav. They approached Moshe Rabbeinu. They could see they're off on the wrong foot. And they said, Vayomeru, Yidrotzon Livneh Liknikneh. No, don't get us wrong, Moshe Rabbeinu. We're going to build corrals and for our flocks and our sheep and our goats and our cattle. All right, here we'll build them here. But we're not done. And we will go. We will lead the charge of the Jewish people until we can bring them to their place, and then in the meantime, he says, our children, one second, I made one mistake here. They said first, they start by saying, Gidrotso nivnele mikneinu. We will build corrals for our sheep and our goats and for our cattle, right? And va'arim lemikneinu, and va'arim livneinu, and we will build cities for our children. So Moshe Rabbeinu was very distressed by that. He said, you have it all wrong. You have it all wrong, because first, the children come first. First, you build for the cities. So even though you'll say, what's the difference? We will, in either case, both will be ready. Okay, here it is. All right, and Pasuk Tet Zion. Then we'll build for our children. We're going to go fight and then come back and build for the children. It'll all be done by the time we go. Okay, and then we will lead the charge as we enter Eretz Israel. And this distressed Moshe Rabbeinu, because when you look, the very end of their dialogue, at the very end of the proposal, we have Moshe Rabbeinu's response. At the very end, Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, You've said very well that you're going to fight, and you're not going to come back till you make sure that all the Jewish people are settled, okay? And then that's nice that you want to do that, but you need to know that you have your sequence wrong. You don't build towns. You don't build corrals first. The first thing you do is you take care of your children, okay? And so, I'm sorry that's the sequence, and they did it the other way. So it's interesting. The Rashi mentions that they were first thinking of wealth. That was their first idea. We're going to save wealth. It's not that they were going to be child abusers, but in their minds, the first thing should have been that they're going to build for the children. They're going to look to the future. It's happened to mention in her essay that mentions in her essay that this is the first time people are coming, not because of what they want in the future or what they've had bad in the past, but they're coming now because this is perfect. We don't need to do anything more. This is exactly what we want. And so, in a way, Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid that the future will be sacrificed because of the quality of the location for them. And so he said, first you build for the children. Now, my good friend Yochanan Friedman, as she live and be well, mentioned about 20 years ago, he said to me, it doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't care about the children. It could be just the opposite. The opposite is that they were saying, we're doing this for the children. We're going to set up all the things we need to do. We're going to go in. We're going to have large herds. We're going to be wealthy. The children will have a tremendous quality of life. And Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, in effect, that might be noble, that could be, but you still got it wrong. You still got it wrong. First, you're a part of Klal Yisrael, and then you understand that when you do go in, that your children are cared for first, and then you can do the other things second. And even though you'll leave simultaneously, they will both be taken care of by the time you leave. Children come first in speech and in mind. Now, I just want to end, because this is a powerful message about children. I want to mention there is a beautiful medrash. Not particularly about this, it's about the following Parsha. about Novach, and that again, once again, the idea of settling that the towns, the settling there on the east bank of the Jordan. But here's what the Medrash says: Omar David, Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Medrash, of course, puts words in the mouth of David. Ribono shel olam, Bishlam ha'ashir yikarei shemo lefanecha al shem oshro. People who are wealthy, and that's of course what Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven were looking for. They're always known as wealthy. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's Montefiore or it's Mendelssohn. The first thing you think of, Montefiore or Rothschild, first thing you think of is wealth. Okay, and so people will say, the bankers, this or that, whatever wealth they have. Avol he'ani, said David HaMelech to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'mei yikarei shemo lefanecha. How will he be identified? With the shoemaker or the dressmaker? Is that what it will be? The pizza store? It says Ella yikarei shemo al shem beno. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says David to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You should know. Of course, David HaMelech does know, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. He says, "I understand." How are the poor people identified? If their children, their grandchildren, their progeny are found in the Beit Knesset, the Korei Batorah, and they're learning Torah and they're reading Torah, Omrim Habriot Ben Mihu, and people ask, who is that child? Omer Ben Ish Ploni. That child is the son or the child of such and such a person of humble livelihood. Then Imsu Harabim Mevorchim Shemo Hagadol Al Yado, and people then say, "Oh, that is quite a wonderful person. Look at him. Not that he could contribute money or wealth to the community, but he can contribute the greatest wealth of all." And children, one thing we should remember, our children are our legacy, even more than the buildings that may be built or the yeshivot that may be fostered by wealthy people and people who are philanthropists, wonderful people. But ultimately, the great legacy of each family is their children, their grandchildren, how they live their lives, whether it's in the Beit Knesset or the Beit Midrash or in the yeshiva, or in fact, working with the Tzorchei Tzibur. That, of course, is one of the great messages of the story of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, V'chatzi Shevet Menashe. So, want to wish everybody a good Shabbos, and Mirz Hashem, this Shabbos again, a double Parsha. It's also Shabbos Mavorchim, and it is also, of course, Shabbat Chazak. And so we'll say to everybody, Chazak, Chazak, and Chazak.
Thank you, Rabbi Myers.
Thank you.
Have a good Shabbos.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.